Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Elisa Joseph, and I am the Director of Programs for the U.S. Black Chambers. And you have joined us today for Advancing Black Entrepreneurs, Power of Capital, How to Fuel the Growth of Your Business. We're very, very happy to have you today. We're really excited. We have a guest speaker with us today, Shay Taylor from Chase Business. He is a senior business consultant, and he will help us understand the types of different credit that are out there, the understanding of what you need as a business owner and being clear about your cash flow, your financial statements in particular. And so it'll be a really exciting afternoon for us. I also have Alicia Gay, who is our program manager at USBC, and she will be sharing some of the things that you have in the chat. We will make this as interactive as possible for you. Just a little bit about Shay. I posted his bio here. He has won multiple Outstanding Achiever Awards during his time at Chase and in his other positions, working on a lot of different Chase projects, this one being the most recent for him. He is from Atlanta, and so we're really excited to have him here with us. He's got a breadth of experience as it relates to working with community development financial institutions, which help in terms of providing other realms of capital, particularly smaller loans, but really can help in terms of bridging that gap before you're ready for financing, and so can share information there. He started with Chase as a branch manager. So we're really excited to have him here. He's got a breadth of understanding on both the consumer side and the business side as relates to relationship banking with Chase. Just a couple of housekeeping tips. We're going to mute everyone as part of this work. Like I said, we will give an opportunity for you to participate with us. We'll keep it interactive. We will answer questions throughout. So there'll be times where we may put you on the screen for that. So just be ready for that. And then we're also going to have you complete a survey at the end. So why are we here? Let's get started with that. Just a little bit about Advancing Black Entrepreneurs. This is a way for Chase to really provide an education program that offers you practical advice and resources to help you navigate the current times, particularly working through this pandemic, and prepare you for long-term success. And so U.S. Black Chambers, along with Black Enterprise, National Urban League, and the Minority Supplier Development Council are working together in a collaboration to deliver these sessions across the country. So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. So one of the reasons that not only do we have this module, which is the second training course that we offer to Chase, the first, if many of you have already participated in that, is really Reclaiming Your Future, focused on how we can help you really navigate through the pandemic. This module, The Power of Capital, is really focused on getting you prepared and getting you ready to ask for financing as you look to grow your business. And so all businesses deserve an equal opportunity to prove themselves in the marketplace. And because coronavirus and the racial social justice issues that are hitting us in this country continue to change the business landscape, we want to help you not only navigate those challenges, but really strive and thrive moving forward. At the end of the day, though, fundamentals do matter. And part of what we're going to share with you today is an understanding of those fundamentals that every bank basically looks at, but you can also utilize that information in the preparation of your financial statements to ensure your success in the financing process. So I just mentioned to you, the four of us, four organizations who work together to help provide you with these resources. And 39% of minority companies feel that their primary primary bank treats the owners with respect. So while a good number, we're not over that 50% mark, there's still a sense of, and having worked in financial institutions, there's still a sense of trepidation sometimes with Black business owners in particular, not necessarily wanting to go in and ask for credit. And so our goal is to make you confident in that request so that numbers like this continue to be raised. So this statement, I think, sort of stands on its own. And our goal here is to change that, that experience as well as perception. So the first thing we're going to do is I want to sort of get a baseline of your knowledge of business credit options. So we're going to do a quick little poll. Alicia is going to launch that poll. And for those of you here, give you about a minute or so to respond to it. Again, just to want to get a clear understanding of where we are in this moment right now. I'll give it another second or so. So we're going to end our poll right now. Let's look at the results. Okay, well, right now, 67% of you have some knowledge of the credit experience, particularly as it relates to business credit, which is great. 16% of you have some little bit of knowledge, but you really want to know a lot more. And about 17% of you are very confident. So this is always a good gauge for me in terms of kinds of things that we can talk about throughout this experience today. So thank you for completing that. Let me just put this down so we can move forward. Okay. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover how you think strategically about cash flow. Cash is really king. Cash flow, the amount of cash that flows within your business that allows you to pay your expenses and run your business. We want to make sure that we're maximizing that as much as possible. Understanding of when your company would need to borrow. A lot of times you can move through with what you have already, but for times like now and when you're really trying to grow your company, where it might be necessary for your business to borrow, and how do you ascertain or assess that? Why would you be a good investment for a loan? That's a really critical point, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you sell yourself in terms of the pitch that you provide, the understanding of having the bank know that you know your business in and out, and you understand your market and what your next steps are going to be. The importance of financial data, again, that really tells the story of how well your business is doing, and we want you to have that knowledge and being able to assess it for yourself. What credit options exist out there? We're going to talk a little bit about SBA loan programs, and then finally end with building your own empire. So let's talk about cash flow right now. Cash flow, as you know, is so much more than just money in the bank. It is really the way that you are capturing the revenue that comes into your business, how much you're able to sustain after your bills are paid. So it's a really important feature for you to understand how to manage through that, how to have a better sense and control over your cash flow. So what ways do businesses use cash flow? Well, they pay their suppliers. We've just talked about what that means. You need to have cash to conduct your daily business operation. You need to pay employees, right? Another part of your business operation. You might also need to rent space or pay for the rental of your space if you're in a lease. And then finally, you also want to begin to reinvest that capital so that you can begin to grow your business, maybe begin to launch into other kinds of products and services that help you to be able to grow. So what I want to do is just kind of share a quick example of a business that wanted to add a product line to take advantage of a trend. And so kind of jumped into it feet first without really examining what needed to happen. And so the idea of her needing to absorb the cost of ramping up her production, marketing her new product, all of those things she needed to take into consideration. What I'd love for you all to do right now, if you could in the chat, you just see this quick example here. What other things would you think of that may have had an issue with her not necessarily being able to show the revenue that she would by jumping into this new startup scene? So if you could just put your answers in the chat, Alicia will share those, and then we'll go over some additional key points to this example. So think about all the ways that she could have maybe managed her cash flow or thought through what she needed to do before she really jumped fully into this new product that she had. So Alicia, any thoughts that people might have?
Yeah, so Mr. Nigel said lack of scale. Mr. Bruce said perhaps he had more cash in his reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Tatiana said there's a lack of domain knowledge, lack of market research, and understanding the true problem that she's trying to solve. And Ms. Roslyn said did not have enough cash flow for business.
Okay, so all of you are correct in your assessments. I'm going to just give you I wanted to hear your answers first before I talk through how her cash troubles started. So as you know, as I mentioned, she found this niche. She went in, she hired some help to ramp up the business. She bought a lot of equipment. She was ordering lunches and dinner for the team for working late hours. So again, trying to reward them and incent them. And then she gets a call from her bank that her accounts were overdrawn. And she started looking at her invoices and saw that some came in, some that were due didn't come in. And so everything that you all said about understanding the marketplace, understanding who her customers were, understanding how she was going to get paid, all of those things fall directly into what these takeaways are in terms of her managing it. Clearly, she didn't have an efficient process of understanding her payables and receivables, so trying to get a better timing when they were coming in. And then she could have also borrowed some money rather than just using the cash in her business. So everything that you all talked about in terms of really that initial research and things that she should have done all fall into why she wasn't successful and hit across these takeaways as well. So thank you all for participating in that. So here are just kind of the key points as I mentioned. And that brings us into discussing, does your business need to borrow? How do you know when your business does need to borrow? So we're going to talk about a few perspectives on how you make that decision. So the first thing we need to know is that if you ever decide that you need to borrow capital, you have to have a plan to pay it back. That is any bank loaning you money, anyone loaning you money wants to know that they're going to be repaid. And so a lot of the work that we're going to do today is really going to focus on how you're able to justify and substantiate the fact that you're a good risk for this particular request that you might have in. So I'm going to bring Shay in right now because I want to talk through what lenders want to know. Here's some key things that we have on the screen, which include, business length, your profitability, whether or not you're seasonal, did you need to build credit before you started? So Shay, do you want to give us some thoughts and some ideas about looking at these potential issues in the decision-making process?
Yes. Thank you for bringing me in. So I think a lot of things when you look at how long you've been in business, and I want to let the room know, I'm going to speak from a Chase perspective. Many different banks have, sometimes they're the same, but sometimes there's different nuances. So I always tell my business owners, as you're dealing in the banking solar system, so to speak, it's best to go and approach the bank not through a level of assumption, but through some real good questions. So the first thing, I'm gonna put myself in the stage of an owner, taking all the information I have, being a banker. So if I'm an owner, knowing what I know, the first thing I'm gonna ask the bank is, what is the requirement? How many years of tax returns do you need? Now I'm gonna speak for Chase. For Chase, for any type of lending less than anywhere from 150,000, we only need 1 year of business tax returns. And so that's good for owners to know, because a lot of people always think you need 2 years. So if you've been profitable right out of the gate, you can get access to capital a lot quicker. And again, I'm just speaking for Chase. And again, those situations and nuances may change depending on your request, your industry, and things of that nature. So just kind of understand that. Profitability, we have this conversation about what is profitable. And a lot of times the business owner thinks that profitability is the amount of cash that's running through the bank account. Per the bank, that is not what we're looking at. We're going to look at that tax return, and whether it's a 1120S or LLC or even self-employed, we're going to look at that net income. We want to see that net income to be positive, with little to no distributions. I may be getting too big in the weeds, but that's something we can talk about a little bit later. But for the sake of this slide, we want to see that be positive. A lot of business owners like to come to the bank and they want to talk about what they are going to do. So they say, hey, I'm here now, but I got a contract in hand. We're going to do this, and we can do this. That'd be great. The issue around that is that the banks are historical cash flow lenders. We will lend off what you've done historically off the last year returns. So the metaphor I like to make, it is like if I've been a C or D student and I'm applying to Harvard, and I'm going to tell them, yeah, but I have all these great things that I want to do. I'm gonna make this grade, I'm gonna make this grade, I'm gonna do this. Harvard will look at my transcripts and say, no, that doesn't really, comport the way that you're selling it. So I think it's very important for owners to know we're historical cash flow lenders. We don't lend on projections, in a sense, especially around the small business world. Knowing if your business is seasonal, I think that is great right here. And one thing I want to pull out the slide and kind of combine is knowing your credit. So a lot of business owners try to go build business credit. Now, this is Shay Taylor's opinion. I will say, from my lending at Chase, I have never, and I've done lending for small businesses and businesses all the way up to 100 million. So once you get past a request of 5 to 10 million, the bank may start looking at your business credit, but at the end of the day, it's personal credit all day. That's what we're going to look at. Back in the day, in the 90s, I think we've had this conversation when the FICO score first rolled out, business credit was a thing. But when you went through all the slew of bankruptcies, the multiple issues in the economy around the dot-com bubble bust in 2000s, and then 2008, which was the Great Recession, firms really just start looking at the personal credit. And I will end that thought with a story. So imagine I borrow $5,000 from Elisa, and I don't pay her back. Well, Elisa, she's a great woman. She's not going to send people after me. No hitmen, no anything. Thank you, Elisa. She's going to just let it go and just say, hey, I'm going to move on. But let's say I come back to her again and I say, hey, Elisa, I know I didn't pay you back, but I'd like to borrow 5,000. More than likely, I think we can all shake our head. She's going to say no. I want you to really pay attention to how ridiculous this next statement is going to sound. So Elisa tells me no, and I say, well, hold up, Elisa, hold up. You're not lending the 5,000 to me. You're lending it to my LLC. See, it's just to my business. So that shouldn't have to do with what I didn't pay you back with the first time. And anybody in any given situation, man to man, woman to woman, person to person, we would not lend that person, because at the end of the day, we don't see the business entity. We see the character of the owner. And character is very, very important. So I tell business owners, personal credit, up until you probably grow above 10 million and you're needing to request, let's say 2 to 5 million or above, is personal credit all day, every day. Is very, very important for that to be up there, and to make sure that you are not high utilization and things of that nature. I'll pause right there. Elisa, if you want me to keep going, or we can go to the next slide.
No, I think that was great. I do want to answer a couple of questions that we have. I do differ a little bit from Shay in this perspective, in the sense that if you've really worked your business and you've not had to owe anything, I think it is important, just as if you were owning a home, understand what it means to have credit and to pay on time. And so I always do counsel my businesses to at least have a business credit card, at least, maybe have a supply line where you get into the habit of being able to pay. A lot of our experiences are based on sort of a habitual sequence of events. And so I think if you begin to build that level of confidence, it's going to give you even more confidence to go into a bank to be able to ask for money. Can we get to a couple of the Q&A questions, Alicia?
Yep. Our first question is, what are some reasons why Chase would deny an established business that's within 5 to 10 years on credit or loans?
So I'm going to just jump in before Shay does.
Yeah.
One of the things I want you all to remember is, in answering these questions, we're going to talk more in generalities, because it's hard to understand. Every individual credit is different. And there are sometimes a myriad of reasons as to why something happens, which is why we're doing this today, and which why I'm going to give you some tips to hopefully help you through. But Shay, do you want to take a stab at that question?
Yeah, I think, and Elisa, you bring up a good point with what you said earlier, and just even with that dichotomy, I know we have we've been in banking, but we work for two different firms. I think that even shows in real time that the different lending practices, even within the firms, they may be separate, but they're not far apart. And it goes back to, I want to reiterate, it goes back to the business owner making sure they're talking with their banker, finding out what's the bank's appetite for certain items. You're going to hear that throughout. Let me get to that question. I will first answer that question. Yes, there are many reasons. I will go to two extremes. I have seen a business, a credible business, decline for something as extreme that they've been arrested in the past, and it's something on just it's a personal characteristic issue. I've seen issues around character. So a lot of times when I see a qualified business get declined, there are issues or there's questions around character. Now that character could, and I went extreme, that character could be trouble with law. Let's take that off the table. That could be also not paying back your bills, or having liens every year. Liens every once in a while, it's fine. We deal with that. Sometimes people forget, we move, the CPA didn't do this, or, I know one case I had, my escrow company moved PO boxes and my escrow check was just sitting there, and we didn't find out until August of the next year. Those are easily you can walk through that. But liens over and over and over, the bank, that may put hesitancy on the bank. I'm gonna go to another extreme: poor financials. So you have a lot of businesses that have been operating, and a lot in our world as Black business owners, they may have been operating in a way where the financials are done poorly, a poor relationship with the CPA. I will give you a story. I have a business right now. I got a great success story for them. We just got them to, I've met them at inception. They have now grown to, they're 50 million plus. When they first started, they really could not get any type of lending. Bad credit, poor financials. And they were a good established business when I met them. They're 5 years in. So it goes with the story, with the question. I asked the owner, I said, well, who's your CPA? And they said, well, we just go to the H&R Block. And I was mortified. And I said, no, you need a CPA. And we ended up, helping them get around. We got them with a true CPA that understood their industry. I think that's another thing that's important. A CPA that understands your industry is very important. And this is another 4 years later. they have continued to grow, and they got a line of credit. So I can talk for hours and hours on end on all the different reasons why a business would established business would not get approved. I would end with this. I see declines for these top 3 to 5 reasons: character, poor financials, poor credit, and also poor, well, that goes into credit as well, poor performance on past facilities. So even if a facility has been paid off or things of that nature, that's still, a lot of business owners think, well, if I pay it off, I paid it off, we should be good. No, the bank remembers. And just think about, yeah, the bank will remember. So I hope I got to the heart of that. But like Elisa said, there can be many reasons why an established business is declining.
I do want to add just a couple of things to that, if I may. And this is just me talking from working with a lot of business owners over the years. I want you to remember a couple of things when you're talking or dealing with the bank. The first thing is that consistency is important to them. So, making sure that you're paying things on time. If you've got an issue, make sure you go to the credit bureau, get that resolved, go to whoever the creditor is to make sure you get that resolved. But again, when I talked about habit before, sort of the habitual nature or the consistent nature of payments indicate your performance. And so they look at past performance. The other thing I do want to be clear about, and we'll move on after this, is a lot of times businesses, the tax returns differ from their financial statements in this way. One is that you might be looking at your tax return to be able to reduce your taxable liability. And that's great, right? No, everybody wants to pay less taxes. The problem is that you might have financial statements that are showing a different number or showing that you're, quote, profitable in a sense, or that, you have a net profit. If those two things are inconsistent, that becomes an issue for the bank. So you have to make a leadership decision in this matter. And this goes to having your kitchen cabinet, your accountant, your attorney, and that mentor. You have to make a decision whether or not you want to be able to show that you make money or to not show so you don't have to pay taxes. You can't have it both ways. So anyone who's looking to borrow, one thing I want you to do is to make sure that those two things align. At the end of the day, if you show a tax return or even financial statements that show that you're in the negative, no one's going to lend you money, because even though you might show projections about, this is what we're going to make and how I'm going to get there, it's not going to work because the actual proof in front of them shows them something different. So I'm going to move on from this, but want to just sort of say that. Let's take one more question, Alicia, before we move.
This one comes from Nigel Smith to Shay. He says that you noted that Chase will look at net income, and he assumes that most early stage businesses gross margins are positive, but not the net income level. What does gross versus net play out in your assessment?
I think that's a very good question.
That's a great question.
That's a great question. And I'll answer it in a couple of parts. So I'll take the last part first. Gross versus net, how that plays, I'm gonna give a very banker answer. The net for us, and I'm gonna add some more on there, we will also add back the line item of depreciation and the line item of interest to whatever that net number is to help the business owner out, because our thought process is an interest expense or any type of depreciation, that money technically didn't leave the company. So we're going to give the owner credit for that. I'm a bit be metaphoric with this. That net income is equivalent to your W-2 if you're applying for a house. That is just the way that the bank will look at it. It is one of those things where, and I hate to be real corporately on you, it's just the credit policy and the credit philosophy of banks. I think you ask a really good question. I hope I answered that question. I know, Alicia, if you want to come on in,
Sure.
I will take one more piece though of the second question about new companies. You're absolutely right. We have to break the thought process. You know, back in the days, you could walk into a bank, pitch them an idea. The bank loan officer will go talk to the manager. They'll say, hey, it's a great idea. They'll do a signature loan right there, and you'll walk out with a toaster or a blender. Those days are gone.
That was when I started in banking.
Oh, no. Those days are gone. So what I tell owners is, again, this is going to be, I'm going to allow me to talk out of both sides of my mouth a little bit. I'm going to talk about my opinion on what the banking ecosystem looks like now for pure startups. Unless you are starting a business that you have some history in, and you're going to keep your daytime job, because the bank will look for a second resource of payment. But even at the end of the day, cash flow and ability to pay does not usurp a business not performing. It just doesn't. There's some things you can get around, but it's a challenging thing. What I tell for startups, I think the CDFI world, I truly wholeheartedly believe that the CDFI world, that's the community development financial institutions. So that's places like LISC, ACE, and things of that nature. That is where those businesses can live and breathe. They do a couple of things. They put the kitchen cabinet around the business owner, so they build community around the business owner. And there's micro lending at place to help that owner get started. So that means the rates are going to be, and they're still traditional bank rates. That's what I like about them. They may be a little bit higher, but they're traditional bank terms. Every day, every 30-day payments, not like On Deck or these other crazy places where they take out the checking account every Friday and they auto debit. These are, traditional type of terms. And then what typically happens is, as that owner gains in revenue and they grow their net income, they then grow out of the CDFI world and into the bank world. So I have a lot of business owners that I tell them, really and truly, the CDFI world is where you're going to go live in. And last but not least, I would also check some of your regional banks. They may have different credit philosophies because they may look at things a little bit differently. And that is okay. A typical business moves banks 3 to 4 times from inception to maturity cycle. And I will pause there, Lisa.
Yeah, just to build on that a little bit. I want to take the first piece first about gross profit versus net profit. It's wonderful if you make a lot of money, but if you spend a lot of money, then how well are you really managing the business? So I need you to think about that, because they are different line items that we're looking at. At the end of the day, what you earn, what you pay out, what's left over, leftover part is what has to figure into this new payment that may be coming on for a loan. And say the net income is $1,000, but the loan payment is going to be $1,200. Right there, you're not demonstrating the ability for business to be able to carry the debt. So just kind of want you to think about that. The second thing is that I want to talk a little bit from startup to businesses that are in business, 5 or more years. As a startup, and I think I started this initially when we were talking about, building credit. As a startup, you have to build your credit portfolio. You have to really start out at either a business credit card, because that's usually, again, one of the easier ones to get, moving into maybe a community lender, which might be a local bank to you, or a micro lender or CDFI. Building in that way helps to, again, at the end of the day, it's about track record and performance. And that's what you want to bring in if you're going to go to a larger bank. The other thing I will also mention is that it does determine the determination as to what kind of industry you're in. Certain banks have certain appetites for certain kinds of industries, and it's important to know that going into it. I think many of you have known that restaurants are something that most large banks shy away from. We also know, facilities where there are larger, restaurateurs, in that business, might be a chain, might be whatever, because they've grown a track record over time. So it's important when we go through this and we're talking about business credit and where to look for these facilities for the most part. So this is called what lenders know, not what bankers, specifically what bankers want to know. There are different types of lending institutions. You want to be able to align your request to that lender, to that lending institution. So with that, we'll move on. But thank you all, Mr. Nigel, and I've forgotten the first person's name, Stacy, I think it was. Thank you all so much for those questions. We're going to move on and bring you in probably when we get to the next set of questions. So moving on, here we go. Let's see if okay, so we have done all of this and had this conversation to really talk about what is credit. And I think what we've talked about just now, I think has led us into this space of understanding credit worthiness, credit history, credit need. So we're going to really talk about kind of what all of the uses of that term credit mean when we're talking to on the borrower side as well as on the lender side. If you all don't mind, I'd love for you to go to your worksheet, your workbook. I believe it's pages 7 through 9. And want you to just very quickly, we're going to take about 7 minutes for this, and then we'll call on about 3 of you, put you on camera, be able to talk us through. But I want you to sort of take a step back, look at the factors around your business that might affect whether borrowing makes sense for you right now. Look at the worksheets, again, pages 7 to 9, and answer the questions you can, because we only have a short period of time. We have about 5 minutes. But do any of the responses help you see your business in a new way as we work through this? And how has your competitive advantage switched or shifted in recent months? I want you to take that into consideration looking at the sheet. So answer what you can, and then we'll have you all raise your hand so that we can bring you on to tell us a little bit about you and your business. So you can start now. We can let anybody in, at least see if we still have a couple of people wanting to come in. If you're coming in, just open your work pages 7 and 9. And the questions are pretty self-explanatory. About 3 more minutes. And if you're finished and you want to share your answers with us, please just let Alicia know in the chat.
Don't be shy.
All right, Bruce. We're going to call on you in about a minute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing today. It's been very helpful, you know, right now, kind of understanding credit and everything. And I'm in a good place with my credit. But to look at the questions you had talked about, what I do is I am a museum exhibit creator, and I create museums around African American experiences here in Arizona. And so I had opened an exhibit in February, and then it closed, you know, COVID hit and then it closed.
Mhm.
And the exhibit was supposed to run to February until July, but the museum's closed in Arizona and they just now start opening. And so my contribution, why my work is important here in Arizona, what I do is I outline the importance of African American history and what they've offered to Arizona, such as veterans in our neighborhood, or doctors in our neighborhood, or athletes in our neighborhood. So I create these pop-up exhibits for the museums, and the idea is to have them low cost to the museum for the patrons, or I create them in my own space with funding so that, you know, the people that want to see them don't have to pay a whole lot to come and see them. And so that's where I'm heading right now. And it's looking pretty good now that the museums have opened. So we'll have to see what happens, but that's kind of what I'm doing now. Everybody's looking at the future, how museums are operating with the COVID. They're limiting the amount of people that come in. And so I'm trying to make my stuff more virtual now. So I'm looking into that world. How can I create an exhibit that's virtual as well as in live person kind of thing?
So Bruce, how long has your business, have you been in business, and are you at a place where you're thinking about borrowing to help you move forward, or you're thinking that the model that you have right now will generate enough cash for you to kind of weather through, say, 2021, so you're able to demonstrate, you know, some level of performance before you do start to borrow?
I don't think I need to borrow. I'm able to, I've got, you know, a little cash flow to support the exhibits I want to create. So I pay for them myself with funding from us. I also make documentary films. And so in the future, it's like having them ready. This whole push for inclusiveness has come around and people are looking for that. And so I've got, well, look, I've got these great exhibits that can go into a local museum, or I can open up a space and put it there. So it's trying to project having dual things. So in-person viewing or online viewing.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to navigate through those two spaces. I've got enough cash flow. I don't need to borrow, and I hope not to need to borrow. If we can get 2 bookings a year, I'm golden.
Mhm. And so I want to be clear too, because I don't want people to be afraid of borrowing. You're self-funding right now. I think that's great. I mean, I think as long as you can, that's great. I think when you start to think about what your next level is and how you scale is when you want to be thinking about, okay, is now the time for me to borrow? That means I'm not using my own cash, but the revenue that I'm going to generate will allow me to pay that back. It will get me to where I need to go a lot more quickly. So that's the only thing I want you to keep in mind. But I think your approach is absolutely on target.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sure. Anyone else? One more person, one more brave soul. It's a simple question. Do you think you're ready to borrow now, or does borrowing make sense for your company now or not? Okay, well, we'll continue to move on. I want you to kind of keep thinking about it. we'll have more opportunity to come in and we'll continue to discuss this thought process moving forward. But thank you all for completing that. Just know that you can go a little bit deeper within your workbook after we finish a session. The importance of it is to really help be a guide to you, and something that, again, you just kind of keep with you to help you with your thought process. So I'm going to move on, hopefully. Okay, so the next part of what we're going to talk about is, why are you a good investment? You know, at the end of the day, you're demonstrating to yourself and to a potential lender why people should risk giving money to you or investing in you. So the first thing I do want to say, and I've said this to all of the business owners who come onto any of these platforms that we're using, and when we're just talking about this, is think of yourself first as a leader. I know you're all business owners, but you're also a leader in your community, right? You have an opportunity to influence the economic shape and shift of your community. That can be either through hiring, that can be either through your philanthropy, it can be through your participation in community activities and having yourself viewed as a leader. So that's the first thing when we're talking about investment, I want you to think about that you are a leader first. So if you want to go to your workbook, pages 10 and 11, gives you sort of an overview of this, but because you are a leader, you're also your business's most important asset. So remember, you are the visionary, you are the decision maker, you make an impact in terms of the business that you're managing and moving forward. All of those things are important. So we used to have this thing in the day, I don't know if they use this expression anymore, but whenever there was a borrower coming in and their loan was approved, one of the things that they would add on there is life insurance, and have your life insurance policy at the bank, right? Because we call that person, oh, key man. If that person wasn't in place, if that key man wasn't in place, what was the viability that the business could continue, right? If anything happened to that leader. So just know you are the most important asset in this. It doesn't matter what kind of product you have, you've got to be able to convince your lender why they should invest in you and your company, and have them really understand that proposition. So when we're talking about credit in particular, or requesting credit, again, your leadership skills, however you're interacting with your clients, with your suppliers, with your vendors, with your employees, with the community in and of itself, shows your leadership potential, and you should be able to document that or talk about that in some way, shape, or form. We just talked about the importance of cash flow, being able to cover any new debt coming in, and then collateral to some degree, whether that be a home or if you're buying a piece of equipment, it's usually the piece of equipment, that asset itself has some cash value that might be needed. So I'm going to bring Shay in right now to really talk about this difference as we discuss personal credit score and business credit score. He knows I'm still of the opinion that you need to have a little bit of business credit, but we also know that based on the amount of money that you're looking for, the underwriting process is very automated in the bank. His description of someone, you know, who's worked on the platform in the bank in the office area and was really the decision maker has really, it's really not the way things work anymore. So Shay, you want to give us your insight on these two areas?
Yes. Yes, and I think it goes back to what we said earlier, is really, I would lead by saying it is important for the business owner to ask this question to the banker. And if the banker doesn't know, have them funnel it up. Now I'm gonna speak from a very Chase perspective. So per Chase, we care nothing about the business credit score. And I will remind you of the story I said earlier of Alicia, or Elisa, sorry, I conflate you both, sorry, but Lisa not giving me the $5,000 from my LLC because I didn't pay her back personally. So for us, for Chase, credit score is really the only thing that we are looking at now. This is one of those unique things, and I think about it when I used to write papers in college. When I tried to get really fancy and spruce it up because, I didn't do the work and I just really wanted to fill some lines up, and I put extra stuff in there unnecessarily. And even though it wasn't germane to what we're writing about, it's incorrect. And I'm dinged on it anyways. That's why I think about a business credit score from a Chase perspective. So one, we only care about the personal credit score, but if you have stuff on your business credit score, we will look at it. Will it be used to make or break a loan? To make a loan? No. Can it break a loan? Yes. So it's still very important. So while you're making sure you're paying your mortgage, credit cards, and all those things on time, if you are extended business credit, because the business credit score profile still exists out there, same with Dun and Bradstreet. We had that conversation how I have a story of a customer that was approved for a $200,000 line, small business owner. And at the beginning of the year, not this year, but beginning of one year, he said, hey, I'm gonna get a Dun and Bradstreet. I told him, don't do that. It's an extra credit file. It's not required. I'm all about what is required. I won't do any more, do any less. Well, he went ahead and got a Dun and Brad. In the summer, he was actually turned down because something was put on his Dun and Bradstreet that he couldn't really answer, and we couldn't get any documentation to say it was untrue. So that was my story. But again, do not take this as the one all be all. That these are great questions in your question bank as you're talking to your business banker. And please understand, sometimes the banker in the retail branch is not the business banker you may need to speak to. So kind of understanding the hierarchy in the branch, because you have a retail banker who is more kind of, for lack of better words, order taker. You want to see if you can get into have a question with the business banking group or something of that nature. I mean, again, each bank will be a little bit different depending on their requirements of what it takes to get into that bank. But I think these are good questions to have. So to end this, in this, personal credit score is going to be very, very, very important for the bank. And on the loans that I have done with small businesses, that is really the only thing that we're looking at. Again, if there's something negative on the business credit score, that will have impact. Unfortunately, anything positive doesn't have any further positive impact. I will end with two things that I wanted to say earlier. I'm going to speak about Chase, our business credit card product. Although we pull the personal credit score in the application process, once the credit card is issued, it does not show up on your business. It does not show up on your personal credit score. Let me say it again. Once the card is issued, it does not show up on your personal credit score. We are one of maybe 2 or 3 banks that has it set up like that. It's another great question to ask if you're applying for a business credit card. Myself, I have one of our business credit cards, and I really like it because I go in and out of whatever that we're doing on the business side. And if I'm applying for something on the personal, there really is no impact unless I decide not to pay Chase back. So, that's what I'll say about that. I'll pause, and definitely interested in anything else that you have to add, Elisa.
Sure. And just a couple of things. The first is you want to be as concise as possible. Banks work on what I call checklists. One of the things that we try to do at the U.S. Black Chambers is have you understand a lot of the items that are on the checklist. So usually if you see an application that a bank has, pretty much answer everything that's on that application. You don't leave any gaps. And I even get to the point of where if something doesn't apply to you, put NA in there. The goal is not to leave any gaps, right? The next thing is to be as concise as possible. We've sometimes been brought up in the culture to be able to, to really expound and explain everything. Sometimes it's not needed. Sometimes 2 sentences do more than 3 paragraphs. Because the more you put in there, the more there is to question. At the end of the day, you're trying to minimize the questions that are answered. You're trying to make what you're doing as explicit as possible. And you're trying to make sure you're answering the questions as truthfully as you can. The third thing I do want to mention to you all is, and Shay started to talk about this a little bit, but I want you to be able to really establish a relationship with the bank. We talk about this in the Reclaim Your Future module, but a banking relationship is really important. And when I say that, I mean going beyond the teller. I mean going beyond just the person who is sitting in a branch office. Being able, if you're really looking for business credit, being able to have them direct you to the relationship manager that is responsible for that particular department or area. It's important for you to sort of understand how to navigate the banking system, so to speak, and understanding that a lot of times the people that are looking at what you're presenting are not the people who are face front of you. You have to go a little bit deeper into the bank, and the person who's sitting on the platform in the office is the one that should help guide you and advocate for you moving through that. So those are just a couple of tips that I want to give you as part of this conversation. If you do need to work on your personal credit score, I always recommend that everybody pull their report through annualcreditreport.com, that you're not charged for that. Sometimes things are on your credit report that don't belong to you. And in this day and time, you know, with cybersecurity sometimes being what it is, sometimes people, you know, hack or do some things that might have an impact on you. It's important that you know that. And it's important that you work through those things before you go into any borrowing situation. So just a couple of quick tips around that. So that moves us into the actual financial data part of this, right? So we've talked about, you know, is your business ready to borrow? If yes, here are the key things that sort of kick that off in the application process. Now, here's the other side of what needs to be looked at, which is the financial data. So as anyone else, loan officers want to feel confident that extending credit to your business, I love that will pay off. It's not so much about it even paying off, but that you pay them back. So that payoff works in two ways, that it pays off in terms of you being able to grow your business, and it pays off to the lender in terms of you being able to pay them back. So I'm going to have Sean really work through some of these areas. I'm going to show you some examples as we move through this. We talked a little bit about tax returns. Sean, from both a Chase and a banking perspective, let's talk about the importance of this particular item within the financial data that gets included in the application process.
Yes, so I think before we dive into the tax returns, one thing I think is good for owners to add to their kitchen cabinet, and again, this is my opinion, is a CFO for hire or a fractional CFO. And here's the reason why. When we get to these returns, they're typically prepared by your CPA. Your CPA is only as good as the information you give them. Now, this brings up a gap point that's natural in the life cycle of a business owner. Nobody on this call grew up understanding how to talk to a CPA. To be even further, I don't want you guys and girls to lose faith in me, but I remember having difficulty passing my college courses around P&Ls and balance sheets because it was just so weird. The thing I like about a CFO for hire is, one, they're not someone you have to keep on the payroll because adding people to the payroll is going to suck cash out of business. But there's someone that you can pay on an hourly basis, whether that's at the end of every quarter, preferably, or the end of the year. And they are able to help articulate information to the CPA. Typically, CFO for hires have been former bankers, and they can speak on your behalf. So you can kind of tell them what you're trying to do, and then they can kind of, from the telephone game, kind of break that down and talk to your CPA. And it helps have better quality tax returns and things of that nature. So let's go into the newer business owners will need to provide both personal and business tax returns. From a Chase perspective, again, every bank will be different. Anytime the business is requesting any type of credit facility less than $150,000, we will only require one business tax return. that is we don't necessarily care about the personal. Again, the underwriter can request more if there's more questions to be answered. So it goes back to what Elisa was saying with really being brevity and being very poignant in what your request is, and answering the banker and telling the banker what you're looking for is going to be very important. I know us as bankers can talk a lot, but unfortunately for our customers, sometimes they have to be a little bit more poignant, so that way we can be able to explain those different things for you. And so the business owner, when you're providing these returns, and Elisa, I kind of got a little bit lost when explaining to the CFO. What else did you want me to hit on this one?
No, I think that we're good there.
I mean,
We're going to
okay,
move,
okay.
because we're going to move into balance sheets next, which I think is where,
I'm passionate about balance sheet.
to really,
I'm
really move
passionate about
forward.
balance sheet. Yes.
Right. So before we get there, I just want you all to make note of this, because this is what we're going to be, some of these formulas are what we're going to be talking about moving through this. And so as we talk about financial statements, so one, part of this is, what are the pieces of financials that you have to provide for your application? One area are tax returns. The next area is going to be the balance sheet. And these ratios are things that banks look at in determining the credit worthy, the business worthiness of the business, the ability for it to generate cash and to be able to sustain the business and the loan. So balance sheets, we're going to talk about just a few points there. And so I have an example. Shay, want you to really talk about this as sort of that snapshot in time of a business and how it shows whether or not the business is solvent or not.
Yes. And this is something that, again, the average owner, I don't expect to know this. And this is something, a skill gap that can be filled by that CFO and helping you allocate these. But the first thing as a banker, the first thing that I look at with the business on this one right here, I look at total current assets, and I compare them to total current liabilities. In this case, this is a quick snapshot, not knowing anything about the company. If total, in this case, total current assets are more than total current liabilities. Total current assets are 149,000 under that first bracket on the left, and on your bracket on the right, total current liabilities are 47,000. What current assets mean is those are things that can be converted, or items that can be converted into cash within a 12-month basis. Total current liabilities are liabilities that can be paid off if need to within a 12-month basis. If total current assets are less than total current liabilities, the business at that point in time is insolvent, because it does not have enough cash, accounts receivables, inventory, or can't sell anything to take care of their total current liabilities. So a quick snapshot right there is always something that I look at first things first on a balance sheet. The next thing I go into, again, knowing nothing about a business. A lot of a lot of business owners, they feel that the banker needs to know their business inside out. When I first got into business banking, I did a lot of lines of credit that, to be honest, I didn't really know much about the business. I was just happy to be in business banking and doing loans, and the way the process was. But as I grew, and I was lending more, and my customers were growing, it was incumbent upon me to really understand this and have this conversation with that. And I tell people the story of me having trouble passing class with the balance sheet and P&L. That's all I do every day. So if I can do it, trust me, the gap point is there to do it, whether it's YouTube videos or again, CFO, that the balance sheet. My best customers understand their balance sheet, and they build their business back on the balance sheet. That's all they care about. When I talk to them, they're always bringing their balance sheet up first. The last thing I look at on the balance sheet, there's many other things, is I like to look at retained earnings. So if you look at retained earnings, it's right there, right above total liabilities, and the number is 197,100. Retained earnings is what I'm looking at. That's my first snapshot at the profitability of the company. I will find more out on the P&L and itemize that, but that's gonna let me know what the company is retaining in the business, These are going to be kind of words internal, but I think we need to use them. It's going to help me understand the quick ratio, which is how fast the business is, well, not how fast, but what the business is converted into cash. So for every dollar leaving the business, how many dollars are coming in? It's kind of my first thing. So when I'm sitting with a business owner without any of my calculations or my special chase tools, I can look at a balance sheet and look at the total current assets, total current liabilities, and then the retained earnings. And that is going to help me start to understand some of the issues or the positives of that business. I'll pause right there. And
Yep, no, that's great. And so just in keeping with the workbook that you all have, we're talking right now about current ratios, which were the current assets against current liabilities, as well as the leverage that Shay was talking about in terms of how much debt you have, how much you owe, how much equity are you keeping. Again, the retained earnings piece, which is also equity, is really, the net income coming into that space, what that looks like, that you're continuing to reinvest in your company. So all those things are key. So that's one. So we're talking about financial statements, separate and apart from the tax returns. So we're going to go to another financial statement that's important. And that's the profit and loss statement. So again, this is a summary. So this, as I mentioned, the balance sheet being sort of at any given day, this is what your current financial position looks like. Profit and loss statement is looking over a specific period of time. A lot of times that can be either monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually, but usually on a quarterly basis. Profit and loss statements are generated that summarize revenues you brought in, any costs and expenses that you paid out during a specific time. So Sean, I'm gonna let you talk about this. And I wanted to share these in particular with you all, because sometimes I know when we had our last conversation, some folks had never necessarily seen them. They were new businesses and they didn't know. Some of you are probably more experienced in this. I want you to sort of hear from a banker's point of view, kinds of things that they look at. Shay, do you want to start talking about what you look at in this income statement?
And a lot of times I meet business owners, they love to lead with the P&L. I always joke and say the balance sheet is your vegetables. You want to stay, that is going to really be, the P&L is good. And we use the P&L to understand the breakdown of top line revenue and the net and the net income. And the revenue, basically the P&L tells a story of revenue coming in, how it cycles through the company, how it leaves the company, and then what is the company retaining from that. So how profitable is it still, although it's not, and again, I'm talking from my standpoint, I feel the balance sheet is way more important. And but the P&L also is important as well, because we're understanding this, we're now getting into how the company will service whatever debt that they have. The balance sheet kind of tells me the health of the body, and the P&L lets me know how the body can execute under whatever type of stresses. That's the way that I look at it. And a lot of those things, I can take a balance sheet and P&L and really just know the lifestyle of a company. When I mentor companies, now that I'm working with small businesses, I always give them the option to send this in, and I start my mentorship from there, from these items, because from the balance sheet and the P&L, and right now we're talking about the P&L, I can see how much is being allocated to marketing. I can see how much is being allocated to insurance. Sometimes I can see bank fees on there, and I use that to kind of understand what's driving that, and if there's an additional solution that we can help the owner with. So both are very important. I will leave this section with two thought processes. If I'm a business owner, my next steps would be after I reconcile my books quarterly, again, depending on how big your business is and how much, and this is where a CPA or CFO for hire can kind of help you understand. But if it's a small business, I'm at least at minimum doing quarterly reconciliations. And the first week of every quarter, I'm going to have my balance sheet, I'm going to have my revenue, and I'm going to sit down, maybe get some time with I'm going to sit down myself, maybe get some time with my fractional CFO and talk to these to understand the health of my business. It's not about how much you sell and having the goods, but it's how much that you keep. And these two documents will help you with that. I want to talk about these two documents as it relates to loans. Remember this now, and Elisa talked to this earlier. And again, I'm speaking only from Chase. From our perspective, we want the tax return, but it's important to kind of have the P&L and balance sheet kind of equate kind of similar. We understand that there's going to be a little bit of difference, but it doesn't need to be that big of a difference, because then we're going to have questions about reconciliation. What are the conversations that we're having with the CPA and things of that nature? So this helps you with the health of your business, and it also helps you at the end of the year when talking to your CPA when you're deciding, you know, your tax liability, what you want that to be. I mean, we're all red-blooded Americans. It's your business. You're allowed to write every and anything off. At the same time, though, that can hurt you on the right side if you're trying to get lending. And understanding this is going to be throughout the year, it's going to help you have better conversations with your CPA. And I will say, from my standpoint, with some of my customers, I used to meet with their CPA, their CFO, and the owner first quarter of whatever new year when taxes were completed, or when taxes were being done, to give my 2 cents, so the owner can make a decision. Do I want not a big tax liability? Or if I know that I have moves I want to make in the upcoming years, then I'm going to maybe shift right here so I can make the business show a little bit stronger. Doesn't guarantee an approval. I will always say that. Doesn't guarantee an approval, but it does make the package a lot better when you have understanding the P&L and the balance sheet, and it reconciles to the tax return.
Thank you for that, Shay. And again, in your workbook, you're going to see a couple of notes around what gross profit margin means, what SG&A to sales means, what EBITDA means. And so all these acronyms, I always talk about the fact that I typically have, whenever you if you ever had a lawsuit, you have lawyers talk to lawyers. It's the same thing sometimes in the banking industry. There's lots of acronyms that we use. It's important to understand what those acronyms are, but it's important to involve your financial professional in the conversation, because they can speak language that's coming out of the financial industry's lingo. And that's a really important thing to know. So as we went through this section, we talked about the fact, again, that your P&L and your balance sheet are really the key things helping you be able to get a loan. They need to be organized, they need to be clear, and they need to be accurate. You also need to know them. So even if you have someone preparing it, you need to be sitting down with your CPA, and for things that you don't understand, you need to get a really good sense of what it means and how you explain it. Because at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, you're the leader, and the bank is looking to you to determine whether or not you understand what is going on with your business, and that you can present it in a way that demonstrates why they should invest in you. So I want you to always kind of keep that in mind. This is I just wanted to share this with you because a lot of times people have not seen a cash flow statement. This just sort of lets you know, and it's an internal document that you would use to let you know how cash is flowing out across different areas of your company. So from operating activities, investing activities, financing activities. So I want you to just sort of understand that, if Shay ever went back and was sort of crunching numbers on you, or one of the underwriters was doing that, this might be another document that they might utilize to sort of understand how your cash flow is working in your business. And these are just projections. And I think Shay talked about the fact Chase doesn't necessarily look at projections, but sometimes if you're a larger business who's really expanding, there are times where you might want to do this so that you can understand how, number one, you're driving your revenue, how much your cost of goods to make that particular product, what that looks like, what other expenditures you're paying out of it, what assets, and this is a balance sheet projection as well. So it's both your P&L and your balance sheet projection. So just kind of wanted to give you a snapshot. These are easily looked up on the internet. I just wanted to give you some key thoughts because a lot of times there are tools that we're not necessarily using. And my goal is to try to have you understand the strategy for how you're going to approach a bank when you're thinking about lending. And all that goes back to you really understanding your marketing, understanding how your business operates, and understanding your numbers.
Elisa, if I can add one thing about projections.
Sure.
I did have a story just real quickly of a customer that was adding a new service. And one thing that I had them do, it wasn't required, but I knew they were in a high risk industry. So it was a restaurant industry, strong, had good financials. But we did projections around that service and added that in there. We did 3-year projections. They got it for free with the SBDC, which is the Small Business Development Center. It can be found on your local colleges. Not all of them are created equal, unfortunately, but if you try to find a good one, your banker should know. But we were able to actually go above and beyond outside our risk policy, and we got an exception to give that customer an actual loan. They wanted a 6-year payback. We kind of got it at a 4.5-year payback. With no prepayment penalty, which the customer is very happy about that. So that's one of those. But he spoke bank, and so that was one of the things he wanted to just submit and kind of tell us all that we were going to do. He took that extra week or two getting those projections. The SBDC is a free service. We were able to articulate what that product was going to do. But not only that, for lending, think about the person whose business was about to go out of business. In the example you mentioned earlier, this is how you stay and survive in business and make sure you don't accidentally cannibalize yourself.
Absolutely. So this is a great tool for you to use. Again, every bank is different, every lender is different, but I want to make sure that you have the tools and equipment that you need, not only if you need it in a borrowing situation, but just you being able to understand for yourself what's happening with your business. These aren't always used in a lending situation. It could be just used for you, again, bringing in a new product and service and really trying to understand how that's going to impact your numbers overall. So just a good tool and a thought that I think would be helpful to you as you move forward. So do want to move into kind of talking a little bit about credit options, because I think it's important of understanding. We've talked about it a little bit through this discussion, but just kind of understanding the kinds of ways that you can access capital. Quickly, I'm not going to go over this, but just so you understand, we talked about the business credit card, why it was important, how it benefits you with either convenience or cash flow or security in particular, but also not having you have to use your capital upfront. Business lines of credit, sort of like a credit card, but a little different in the sense that they are renewed every year. Usually there's a period of time where you cannot be borrowing at all. So if you were in sort of a seasonal or cyclical business, or even sometimes if you're taking on a new product and you have to maybe bring in a new contract, and you may have to bring in, say, employees or equipment, or employees or some sort of expansion or buy raw materials, whatever that might be, you might need a line of credit. And it helps you, again, with being able to have that money up front and then be able to pay it back once you get the proceeds back from the investment that you've made in a new product line. Shay, you want to add anything more to this?
Yeah, I think that to take it back to the balance sheet, I told you I'm in love with the balance sheet. The business line of credit and the credit card appears on the short-term liabilities. So when you're looking at utilizing these particular facilities, it's important not to overextend yourself. So for example, if your total current liabilities is, let's just say 20,000, and for some reason you have a line of credit and credit card that combines for 50,000, if they're both at the max, you now just have your business looking insolvent on that paper. So it's important that we use these facilities properly. I always talk about credit cards are for day-to-day spending, gas, T&E, things that that the business would spend on debit card, but can spend on a credit card and get points back. Line of credits are meant to fill in the gap between accounts receivables and accounts payables. not all businesses may not have that, but just think of it, you know, as you all know, if you're invoicing, you have to do the invoice first. I mean, you have to do the work first before you get the payment. But in between that gap point, employees have to be paid, lights and all that stuff have to be kept on. So that's where the line of credit helps float the business until that income comes in. In a perfect world, that line of credit is paid down, and then the rest of that money is left in the bank account to help boost retained earnings. And for any long-term debt, which we'll probably end up getting to, that's where we want to have business loans in, so they're properly allocated. I've helped businesses become strengthen their balance sheet by going in and looking at that and saying, hey, we need to take these 2 short-term facilities, let's plug this in with a loan, and then move that to your long-term assets. The business looks better, but I also tell the owner they do have to change their habits, because if this keeps going, what's going to happen is they're going to find themselves out of business on a paper standpoint and unbankable.
Absolutely. So again, these are things that you're using because you've identified the specific need and it is paid back in less than a year, hopefully in less than 9 months. So, you know, those are good points for you to sort of be thinking about. Now we're going to move to sort of term loans. Shay just gave you an example of consolidation if needed, but at the end of the day, you're using a term loan. And when we say term, that means it's over a certain number of years. For repayment. It enables you to have a little bit more flexibility in what you're doing, because you have the ability to make a monthly payment for the most part. And usually it's used for things, large equipment purchases, if you're purchasing real estate, if you need capital to expand, or you need a more predictable repayment schedule. So Shay, why don't you have a little bit of a word on this?
Yeah, I know I touched on it before, but yeah, that's where you want to utilize those loans. I think just at the end of the day, when you're thinking of line of credit, loan, and things of that nature, it's important when talking to the banker to understand the difference, because, you know, just from a character standpoint, a leadership standpoint, when a customer comes to me and says, hey, I need a line of credit because I want to purchase a building, that lets me know that, you know, regardless, we're still going to do right by the customer, but we need to have a little bit more education and looking at what we're doing. When the customer knows what facility that they need, that just speaks to the business acumen of the owner, and it's a better process. With a banker like myself, Elisa, you're probably the same banker. We would educate the owner, but if you're dealing with somebody who is an order taker within the bank at the branch, they're going to do what you say that you want, and then you end up getting a turn down and not knowing why. So it's good to just kind of always understand. And my best customers, to a certain extent, have known a little bit more than me. Now, at the time when I was new into business banking, and those are the ones that, you know, again, had the habits of understanding their balance sheet and understanding how the different facilities work within their business.
Absolutely. So I'm going to move through the rest of this section pretty quickly, because I do want to take some questions at the end. Most of this you can look at in your workbook, but a lot of it we've already talked about. So we mentioned additional sources of capital already. When we talked about this in terms of lending, we said that this just wasn't about banks. So there are CDFIs, community development financial institutions that we mentioned. There's venture capital. I want you to be very careful with that, because you definitely need an attorney, and that people will take a portion or a stake in your company. And if something goes wrong, you could lose your company. So it's great to kind of have angel investors or some equity investment in your company, particularly for things that really have a very high capability of just exploding in growth. You want to look at it from that perspective. And then right now, because of COVID, there never used to be small business grants. Now there are quite a few out there. It's important that you look at them county by county, city by city, and your state. And it's pretty easy to go on those websites and see what's available and really kind of stay on top of it. New ones come out every day that might be able to really help you navigate your business. I'm going to have Shay just work through very quickly quick descriptions on our SBA loan programs. This is a product that gives the bank a little bit more of a comfort cushion in lending to you, because they guarantee a portion of your debt. So take it away, Shay.
Yeah, I'll go real quickly. So the FBA, not FBA, sorry, the SBA is really a component that mitigates any type of collateral shortfall or any type of riskiness around the business. So you'll see this, some SBA loans with high risk businesses, but also businesses that, or industries that are not high risk. Maybe a company's wanting to grow, they can show they can support the loan. It may be a little bit outside bank policy, but we can get there. The SBA comes in. Let me tell you what the SBA really acts in, just in a true metaphoric term. It's, again, I'm gonna use Elisa. Let's say I do have a good credit history with Elisa, and I'm asking her for $5,000 to help expand my business. And she says, Shay, I got it. I know you know your stuff. It's a little bit out my comfort zone. It is like Alicia coming in and putting her arm around her saying, you know what? Let's do the loan. It fits your policy. And if for some reason if Shay goes belly up, we'll split the loss 50-50. Alicia is happy because now that instead of her being out $5,000, she'll only be out $2,500. And that is where the SBA comes in to really bring benefit. It's not a negative loan. It's not a lot, in the market, a lot of people think that it's for struggling businesses. So I've seen it for businesses of high risk, businesses of great leadership where they're looking to expand. So the SBA loan just really reduces the risk to the bank, and it offers the business owner ability to keep more capital. And we talk about that. So who's for-profit businesses, less than 15 million. If you have a lot of personal money, sometimes you can disqualify yourself from the SBA program, because the SBA would tell you just to do a capital injection.
So just going to have Shay go through the products quickly,
Okay.
just to kind of give you an example of the different types of SBA products that are out there.
Right. So Sba Express, this is the increase. That is, it can be a term loan, or it's a line of credit that ends up turning into a term loan that is backed by the SBA. It's meant to be an express, so that way people don't get bogged down with all the SBA paperwork.
I'm going to pass this example. Okay.
Okay. The SBA 7A, those are great for if you are looking to, we do a comparison of all three of these, but I've seen this for working capital injection, expansion. I see the SBA 7A a lot of times when businesses are buying another business. That includes real estate. It's just a great way to kind of turn in working capital and whatever asset that you're trying to buy. And the 504, I see a lot of this with owner occupied. I like the 504 because it's a combination loan where you do have, in layman's term, a first and a second, where the bank will take fit. So if you have let's say $100 million building you're trying to buy, the bank will cover 50% of that. So you have a $500,000 loan with the bank. The SBA will come and get 40%. So you'll have a second mortgage that's that 400,000, and then the owner will capital inject the 10%. Again, it's designed to help the owner retain capital with doing the deal.
One of the reasons I like this program, we don't use it as often as we should. So many of you may find yourself in a leasing situation or in a building where your lease continues to go up and up and up. It might make more sense for you to finance, a building in and of itself. Could be a smaller building, but and what it does is it sort of solidifies that obviously your business is going to be there, lets you earn some rental income, but also lets you get in with a lower down payment. And for the most part, your mortgage payments are going to be a lot less than what you would be paying in a lease. So just something to think about, but this is a program that not many people take advantage of, and I think it's a great program that SBA has.
It is.
So we're going to, at the end of this, in Building Your Own Empire, I want us to take survey one more time, because we've gone through a lot of information here. And so I want to know now, hearing what you've heard and learning what you have learned through this process, how confident you feel now about understanding credit options that are out there in the marketplace. Be like 10 more seconds. All right, I guess we can end this polling. Boy, I'm feeling really good that y'all feel that confident. That's wonderful. That means we did our job, Shay.
Excellent.
All right, so before we go, I do want to take a couple of questions. My computer is always a little slow. Let's take a few questions. If anybody has one, please raise your hand so that, or put it in the chat so that Alicia can either place you on screen or she can share the question with us.
Here's a question. I guess it's a Chase question, but what are the minimum and maximum lines of credit that you all offer in general to small businesses?
The beautiful thing about Chase is you can be with us from inception to IPO. Now we have different departments of levels. So we have our retail kind of business banking or retail banking, our kind of business banking world. I have had a company just recently go from 8 years ago, they were just starting, and we got them to our middle market, Black-owned company, well-known company. I won't say their name, but they're a very well-known company. And they just got a $7 million line of credit within our middle market and are on pace to grow up to 100 million. That's not so far-fetched. I know sometimes we throw those numbers out there, but I literally knew this company when they were bringing ingredients and making their product at the table. And they couldn't even get a credit card because now they got a $7 million line of credit.
So Shay, from a dollar amount, just can you give us some rough ranges? So for instance, if it's a business credit card, what's the minimum for that? Maybe the minimum.
Okay, I think that's yeah. Thank you for that follow up. So the minimum credit card is 5,000. On some instances, I've seen us do 500, but that's an exception base. And on a line of credit, the minimum is 10,000.
Great. Any other questions, Alicia?
Okay. About Shay, they want to know how they can contact you.
I always joke. I don't know. Alicia, I'll leave that up to you. I have no wife.
Yeah, he's gonna leave that to me.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you. I will tell you, I'm open though. I have no wife, no kids. I just do bank stuff and drink tea all day and go running around Midtown. So no, I'm definitely very open. And then making sure we get you in the right parts of the bank from a regional standpoint. Yeah,
absolutely. And a couple ways that you can do this. You can come to us. We usually send a follow-up email out there that you can connect directly with the banker. It may not be Shay, but you're also free to come to us at programs@usblackchambers.org if you have some questions, and I'm happy to reach out to Shay directly. Sometimes it depends on where you reside. So bankers sometimes are placed regionally, but feel free either way. Like I said, we'll send you out the information to get in touch with bankers that are specifically in this program. One thing I can say about Chase is that if you inquire through the link I'm going to give you, they're going to give you a banker that's specializing particularly in advancing Black entrepreneurs program. So that's an important piece that you don't have to try to explain it, in another branch someplace else. So just know that we'll make sure that you can get connected that way.
And I'll give you one last tidbit. I created the training for the team. So all the people you'll go to, I know them. So feel free to drop my name and we'll whatever we got to do to coalesce around you. I'm more than happy to help.
That sounds good. So like I said, you can come to us and we can get to Shay. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Giving some people some chances to type. I don't see anything in our Q&A.
Okay. Well, we thank you all for participating today. Thank you for joining us and being just very, very active with us. We appreciate it because our goal here is to answer your question and make sure you get all the information you need. Before we close, I just want to share a couple of things. Would love for you all to go to buyblack.us. We have a platform, an online platform specifically for Black businesses. And so it enables people to find you more readily, to use your product and service. And by the beginning by sometime in the first quarter of 2021, we're going to be able to certify businesses. There are no other Black certifications out there. We will be the first doing that. So love to get you in the portal, and we'll continue to kind of share that information moving forward. The next is Grow with Google. We have a Google landing page that we're working with Google in a lot of the things that we're doing. So they have a business badge attribute just for Black businesses, again, being able to have you be identified in searches and SEO searches. So it makes it easier for people to connect with you. Let's take advantage of this time that people want to do business with Black-owned businesses. And so in addition to that, we also work with Google in terms of providing you with online webinars that help you be able to expand your business. And that's everything from checking out your website and making sure that you have it set up in a way that's going to maximize people being able to find you, to e-commerce solutions and the like. We start this Wednesday, actually tomorrow, with just a little bit of a preview of what that looks like, and our landing page that we'll share with you as well, which is not this page that you have here, but you can go there directly. We will share our landing page with you so that you have an opportunity to participate in all of the webinars coming up. We can share one with you specifically about putting the Black attribute and adding that to your Google My Business, as well as the best use for Google Analytics. So please take advantage of that. One of our other sponsors, UPS, if you are shipping out for the holiday, has some discount savings for you. So we want to make sure that you have that information. On December 17th, we are hosting a webinar with Gusto, which is focusing really on planning for 2021, making sure we can get your cash flow in shape, sharing some other business tools. They have some free financial tools as well. And they have some features that you can be able to use for free for 3 months. So we want to make that available to you. And as always, this is our last Thursday's Edge workshop, which is now on Tuesday, for advancing Black entrepreneurs. We're going to have a schedule out before the end of the month for the next quarter in 2021. We will be doing more of these workshops and sessions. So if you enjoyed it, you're welcome to do a couple things. You could always come back for refreshers. You could also go to usblackchambers.org/webinars. For all of those sessions that we've done thus far, and do them on your own, just as refreshers as well. You can reach out to us to connect you for more information, but we'll have a series of these workshops again next year, in addition to things that we do for our Thursday's Edge series. And so with that, here's just some information about finding resources relative to coronavirus navigation, trying to help you be able to be more successful and move through. But we are here also at programs at usblackchambers.org to help you through anything that you need. So you also see the website there for the Advancing Black Entrepreneurs Program if you want to get in touch with a Chase banker, or as I said, you can reach out to us as well and we'll connect you with Shay. But Shay, I want to thank you so much for coming on board with us today. It was a great conversation with you. Thank you for all the clarity and the willingness to be transparent with our business owners. Really enjoyed doing this and hope to do more of this with you in the future.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining today. Look out for an email. And I believe that Alicia has also put our survey link in the chat. So we'd love to hear how you thought this webinar went. So please feel free to complete that, and we'll continue to stay in touch with you. Thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. And we look forward to checking in with you in the new year. Take care and be safe.